everyone. The topic today, I really wanted to get this out there because even though we know sometimes we make these mistakes, so the perilous world of legal DIY. So in this episode, we're going to debunk some of these misconceptions, have conversations about the pros and cons and the legal world at large. We're growing, we're starting businesses, so let's do it right. Today, our guest is going to be Toni Long. So, something, enough of me, let's go. Good morning, everyone. Paula Mattisonsierra, Power Marketing SF, and the host of 10 at 10. This morning, I have with me Toni Long, the managing partner and founder of the Long Law Group. Good morning, my dear.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So you run a fantastic boutique firm that provides strategic legal advice and service to business owners and creatives. Um, you know, Entertainment practice and business as well, including production, talent representation, motion picture, television, script, on script, new media development, distribution, and licensing. You've seen a really big cross section, my dear. You see a
Mhm.
lot of what happens when folks are starting and growing. And of
Yeah.
course, property is involved in that, copywriting, etc. So you've seen quite a bit.
Yes. Yes. So on the business side, we work with clients anywhere from sole proprietors all the way to small middle market companies with revenues over 100 million. We advise a lot of family-owned businesses. Kind of we call them mom and pop, but the mom and pop businesses are essentially the foundation of our economy. They keep us afloat. Let's not make any mistakes about that, and let's not forget the importance that they have and the amount of wealth they generate. We advise those clients. And then on the entertainment side, which you were talking about, I tend to talk about that a little bit more because it's sexier. People remember that more than they remember. Like you start talking about business advice and contracts, and people are, you cured,
They
cured
gloss
and
over.
very quickly. So, but on the business side, we do some very important work advising our clients, from inception all the way to what we call a disposition event, either the sale of a business or the dissolution of a business. So it's a lot going on in between as they start and they grow, and then eventually, either get sold or they unwind.
Well, something, let's jump right into it because, the internet is shouting for us right now. Let's debunk some misconception out there because I feel like I hear it all the time. I can do it myself. I can handle it. So, misconception number one, I can handle any legal matter on my own. I don't need an attorney.
Okay, so you know, I liken this to me trying to do my own plumbing. And I had an issue, I had a leaky faucet. And I'm
No,
like,
this is a real story.
yeah, I watched a YouTube video and I was like, okay, I got it. And then I said, wait a minute, what if something goes wrong? Because I have a great plumber, but he's so great that, it would take him like a day or two to respond.
Yeah.
And so I called him, he came over and I told him what my plan was. And he laughed. He was like, oh, yeah, you could have done this yourself. He said, but you would have gotten this, pretty far into it and realized that YouTube video didn't show you this special part that he pulled out of his toolkit that you don't have, that you'd have to go to Home Depot to get. So now you got to stop.
Hmm.
So what looked like 15 minutes on YouTube would have been like 3 hours,
Yeah.
right? And so I tell that story to say, know when to stay in your lane.
Mm.
When clients try to do things on their own, telling someone to stay in your lane doesn't mean you're not intelligent. It just means we all have areas of expertise. Find someone you trust in that particular area and let them do the lifting. You are a marketing and branding specialist. I would not presume that I can even begin to know how to do what you do, because people make the assumption that, well, oh, we all speak English, I can read a contract, so it's easy. Well, if that were the case, trust and believe we'd be out of business.
Yeah.
Law
Yeah.
schools would be out of business. It's not that simple. And even for small business owners who are doing, quote unquote, kind of easy business contracts, although there really are no real easy business contracts because of the implications of getting it wrong. You need someone who understands the language. I can read a contract and know, in the context of those provisions, how it all works together. And then what happens when it goes wrong? Because the bulk of a contract, you have like your business terms. I'm going to pay you $2,000. You're going to give me a logo, so on and so forth. It's going to be delivered by this date. If I have questions or changes, I have this amount of time to make those changes, right?
Yeah.
That's straightforward.
Yeah.
That's if you and I are on the same page and things are working, there's a symbiosis there. When things go wrong, let's say, and this is not Paula, by the way. We're going to go to
Yeah.
another marketing person, marketing person X, who's like,
Thank you.
basically, I don't know what I'm doing. I just took your $2,000 and now something has come up, or I don't know how to do what I said I know how to do, and I'm not delivering.
So let me ask you a question then. So those foolproof DIY legal forms that we see, if an attorney is like laid it out, I mean, I found it online. It's laid out by an attorney. Sounds like it may not be so foolproof.
No, because when Google, like, okay, I need a, say, asset purchase agreement, which is a really complicated contract, but you wouldn't believe that people would actually pull that from Google. You don't know the positions of the parties who were in that contract.
In
You
the
don't know
original.
about the negotiations that went on before and how they arrived at, certain of the provisions that are in that contract. Oftentimes, let's say quite honestly, any contract, there's going to be some back and forth between the parties. There's going to be some negotiation. Now, there are some forms that you will find that are truly forms they try to be party neutral, but they are so general as to, in many cases, be ineffectual for you in case something goes wrong. When I'm representing a buyer in a deal, I'm representing the buyer. And that's not to say that I don't care about what happens to the seller, but my focus and my when I'm drafting is on how do I protect my client who's buying this business. If I'm representing the seller, how do I protect the seller? And those two parties have very different interests. And there's certain provisions that you will want for a buyer to protect them that as a seller you might fight against, and vice versa. So when you find something online, you really have no idea what went into creating those contracts and the relative position and power of the parties involved, and where the concessions were made. There could be a provision in there that is so particular to that deal
That
that
deal,
no
yeah.
one would like, and you're like, well, now it's in my deal, and it's like, but it shouldn't be in your deal because you're not these
You're not
parties.
that person. You're not that industry.
Oh my God, yeah, please, yeah, if you're gonna do it, get a form from your industry. Don't pull for a real estate deal, pull a manufacturing form.
All right, I'm going to throw another bomb on your side then. What about those legal experts? Like you can become a legal expert overnight, watching a few videos online. I mean, I see them all the time. People who become legal expert in marketing overnight because they saw like a bunch of videos where, they're
Yeah,
doing one or two items.
I
Can
mean, and
that
you see
work? I mean, there's a lot of videos. I mean,
there because of the how easy it is to make a video. I can make a video on how I'm an expert dentist and really mess
and
up
you're
some
not a
people.
dentist.
I'm not a dentist at all. you know there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think it's really important for consumers to be more informed and do their own due diligence in terms of who they're getting advice from. I watch a lot of videos on Instagram and Twitter and so on and so forth, where people are like, you can form this LLC and not pay taxes, and I'm like, oh God,
Who
it's not
are you
that
exactly?
simple, people. If it were that simple, everyone would be doing it. You'd hear about it everywhere. Whenever you hear these words and they don't want you to know this, know you're about to be fed a bunch of
Walk
BS,
away.
right? They don't want you to know this. Like, this is the stuff they're trying to hide from you. Like, no, no
It's,
one's,
but it's endemic to our culture though. Everyone wants
yes.
fast and easy, it's like everyone wants that 5 minute abs and this and
Like 5 minutes. Yeah.
so you mean I have to put some work in? It's like, oh, I mean, for me, when I'm working with clients, I tell them if they're like, where do I spend the money? I'm like, your accounting setup and your lawyer. I'd rather you do that first and be safe,
Yeah.
and then we can build a smaller budget and move into something else later.
Yes, I
Protect
agree.
yourself
I
first.
agree. I mean, we are truly prophylactic, as transaction attorneys working with people drafting contracts and so on and so forth, and offering them strategic business, legal business advice. Now, the best case scenario
Yeah,
is you will never need to invoke any of those, the what we call the boilerplate will never
yeah.
come into play in your contracts. That's money well spent. But a lot of people don't see it that way. So you mean I have to pay you, $3,000 to draft this contract, and well, yeah, because what you're going to save with a properly drafted contract, if something goes wrong and you have a really bad contract, litigation is very expensive. And I just told a client this the other day. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and it
And
is
$3,000
unpredictable.
would be a savings, right?
You can't get someone, unless they're really in Los Angeles, to
Mm,
draft a complaint for you for $3,000.
mm,
I wouldn't trust it. Put
yeah,
it that way.
yeah, yeah.
So, and you certainly won't be able to answer a complaint. That's the worst, being sued. So spend the money up front.
Let me throw this one out at you, though. It's a little bit of a misconception, but I'm going to flip it based on some of the things that you shared here today.
Mhm.
Is there any scenario where I can do some legal DIYing to save me money?
Mm.
Because I mean, I hear it. It's like if you say do the DIYing on, it's going to save you a ton of money.
Yeah.
Don't spend that $3,000. Just do it yourself.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna go more. People don't like this nowadays, but go somewhere in the middle. Um, is there some place where that can work?
I mean, it really depends, and that is an answer most lawyers will give you about, quite honestly, the vast majority of questions you ask them. It depends. It depends on the facts. It depends on your level of sophistication. Because I've had clients who've used LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, and some of these other services who are fairly sophisticated, and they knew, okay, I can use this for this very discrete purpose, and it'll be fine. And I've had other clients who had no understanding of the law and business law and the impact that these contracts that they were signing could have, with disastrous consequences. You cannot create a form that takes into account the complexities of a business relationship when there's more than one person, generally speaking, because we're human. And I've heard, every iteration of, well, no, we're really good friends. We're not going to have a falling out. If relationships were not fraught, we wouldn't have a more than 50% divorce rate, right?
Mm, yeah,
Business
yeah,
relationships, going into business with someone is a form of marriage. It is a business marriage. And
right.
oftentimes, business partners spend more time together than they do with their romantic partners.
Yeah,
And it is so much, it can be a lot more expensive, and to get out of that relationship if it's done wrong, or to fix an issue that comes up if it's done wrong. So if any two people are thinking of going into a business relationship together, get a contract. Make sure you are clear about what the expectations are of the other person. And this, quite frankly, is good advice for even a marriage. What are
yeah,
your expectations of that person?
yeah.
How do you communicate? Are you passive aggressive? That's a no no. You have to, people can be passive aggressive. can't read your minds. Be be confident enough to just say what you're thinking and what you want. You can say it nicely. You don't have to, be a jerk about it. But there needs to be a level of communication between you and your business partner so that everybody's sitting at the table, they know where this is going. So I think in terms of, could it work? Could some DIY situations work for you? It really depends on the situation. It depends on what's at stake. I would not trust a DIY if I'm selling my business. And we've seen some of those contracts because things have gone south and led to litigation. And so a situation where they maybe would have paid $10,000 for an attorney to help them with the setup and maybe, fixing a problem is now costing them six figures in legal fees, and
Wow.
years to resolve.
Well, let me ask you another question then. Can you share some more stories of things that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, you have situations where, like I said, people try and take really complicated things and shoehorn them into a simple form. We had a situation where there were, I think, 5 or 6 business partners forming this company. The form they used essentially was like, okay, everything will be split equally. Well, if they had a conversation with an attorney, we would have sat them down and said, who's doing what? Because this was a startup, and who's bringing in the money versus who's, using labor and services or whatever as their capital contribution. And because that's going to be problematic. But maybe let's have their interest, the person who's, and this was literally no knock to you or your profession. This person was, I'm a marketing specialist and I have all these connections and I'm going to bring all these clients to the company and so on and so forth. And this was the first person who tapped out after like 8 to 12 months. And this person owned a huge portion of this company. And so it cost them a lot to buy that person out. Whereas that interest in the company never should have vested immediately before this person ever put pen to paper, ever picked up the phone. There are things that we would have done very differently in setting that company up to protect the company ultimately, if we were representing the company. And it was, it took, I want to say that was actually a quick one. It took us about 6 to 8 months to negotiate this person's exit. It cost the client almost in the 6 figures to get this person out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, things that you could have sat down and discussed ahead of schedule, and actually, I have to say one of the things I'm loving about the world that we're in right now, people are open to having those discussions, whether it's a marriage, a relationship, business relationship, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Should we do this? People are very open about it now.
And one of the things I would say, and one of the things I would say for my practice, certainly what we do, and a lot of attorneys do this as well, even if you're unsure about whether or not you're ready to pull the trigger and hire an attorney, pay $500, whatever it is, for an initial consultation, for an hour of a lawyer's time. We do, 15-minute initial consultations for free. But if someone wants something more in depth, there will be a charge. But pay that money to have that conversation and get an idea of what you're getting into, and then make somewhat of an informed decision as opposed to just making assumptions and going it alone. And do your due diligence, do your research. I'm not at all insulted when clients ask me about my background. What have I done? Have I ever handled this situation before? Things of that nature. Those are the types of questions you should be asking. You should be asking it of all of your professionals. Simply because I have a law degree or simply because someone went to med school does not mean we're above having someone ask us about what we do. And so that could save you a lot of consumers so much in headaches, because then they know, okay, and I've had this happen, people on a 15-minute call with me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, why are you setting it up as an LLC? Well, that's what everybody else is doing. That's what my friend did for their business. Well, your
Yeah,
business
I
is
hear that so
substantially
often.
different than your friends.
Yeah, I hear that so often.
You
It
know,
like breaks my heart. I'm like,
right? It's a completely different industry. You can't avail yourself of the same things that your friend, or maybe you shouldn't. Maybe your friend made a mistake. Did you ever think about that?
exactly. And we're just looking in a broken mirror, you know?
Right?
So let me
That's a
ask you a
great saying. I
question.
like that.
Where should your headspace be when you're, starting or growing a business, when it comes to reaching out to someone? So I want to reach out.
Mhm,
Should I save the money? You've given us some great information today about, the big no-nos of this.
mhm.
When approaching someone like yourself, what should I be thinking about,
You
to,
know,
to make this a proper conversation?
well,
I'm getting into a marriage with you.
yeah, I think, when you're ready, when you're at the point of starting a business, and it is going to be a business, not a hobby. Let's think about, when we watch Shark Tank, they always tell you if you're doing XYZ, that's really just a hobby. You're not really serious about a business. It's the same thing. When you are thinking about and you're serious about starting a business, you have to put together a team. You need people to advise you, even if it's just getting you out of the gate. We set up a lot of companies for clients and get them started, and then, like, you're not paying us when, just for just sitting around and doing nothing. If you need us, we are here to answer your questions and advise you. So what you should be thinking about, um, who are my trusted professionals? you know do I have a CPA? Because if you're starting a business, that person who's your personal tax preparer is probably not adequate to do your business taxes. Find someone who is a certified public accountant. It is very important to have a CPA to advise you on tax matters, because a lot of the decisions that the or advice the CPA will give you will impact what we do. It'll impact the kind of entity
Mhm.
you form, and all these other things. And we work together. Like, a lot of my clients, CPAs, we talk and, like, okay, does this make sense for them? Let's do it this way. The other thing, yes, find someone who can advise you on the legal issues, what you need to do. There, I think probably for every Secretary of State website, there's a section on, what you need to do to set up your business. Here are the things you should be considering. The SBA, Small Business Association, has lots of great resources. Truly avail yourself of those things, and don't think you're going to miss out on something simply because you're going to take a little time to learn and get it right. I'd much rather get it right the first time than to move quickly and just screw it all up. Because when consumers screw things up, it costs a lot more for us to come in and clean it up
Clean it
than it
up.
would if you came to us at the beginning, and we could do it right, at the starting point. So focus on putting together your team of advisors, and if it's going to be a business, that means you have to have a budget for this. You can't say, I'm going to start a business, and, well, how much do you have? I have $500. Like, okay, you can do some things with that, but how serious are you in terms of this being a
Starting a
business
business.
and your
Yeah.
livelihood? It's shouldn't be, you know blowing in the wind kind of thing. It shouldn't be fly by night. You really do have to
Yeah.
put some resources behind it, put some
Super
thought
important.
into it.
Yeah.
The same amount of thought and planning you put into picking your, what's the sports teams that people do, the
They put more effort into that.
yeah,
Yeah,
your little fake football team. I forget what it's
exactly.
called. People are spending weeks picking their players and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, for your business, how much time? So I spent 5 minutes.
I know, right? My friend likes this, so. So let me ask you a question. It's like, what is, I mean, because I'm hearing some okay, not too bad things, but we're getting the warnings as well. What's your opinion on the legal softwares that are out there in the market that you're seeing?
I mean, we've had clients who've used LegalZoom, who've used Rocket Lawyer. I think those they serve a purpose, and they fill a need, and they fill that need because the legal profession was asleep at the wheel in terms of, um, making services available to lower income or, um, middle America, if you will, people in, middle class and lower middle class
Yeah.
consumers who still needed legal services but didn't know where to go. If you're a college educated person, or you went to grad school or whatever, chances are you have a good group of professionals that you can pick from to say, hey, this issue's come up, can you refer me to someone? But if you're not moving in those spaces, it makes it much more difficult to find the services you need, that you can trust and rely on. And so these companies came up, and they started filling a need for simple things that people didn't have but really should have. LegalZoom's big push was wills and trusts. Now, I'm going to tell you, that is a very very specific area. Can you do a simple will? Sure. But here's the thing. If you or LegalZoom messes it up, guess what? You're dead. You don't know. Your family, however, is now stuck maybe in probate, or trying to fix something
Mm.
that, was wrong, or what have you. But in terms of simple forms like, oh, I need an advanced healthcare directive. I need some sort of power of attorney for my aging parent. Things of that nature, they can certainly help. But I think the minute that you start to have questions about, am I doing this right? Because you are, these are contracts and forms that will impact, if not your life, someone else's life. And the decisions you make will have consequences. So it's really important that you get it right. So a lot of these services, I'm not sure about Rocket Lawyer, I think LegalZoom does, you can call and talk to someone. If they offer that service, it will cost you a little bit more. If you're talking to a lawyer and that lawyer practices in that area, that's very important. Avail yourself of that. But, just like doctors specialize, all doctors go to medical school, all lawyers go to law
Yeah.
school. And then when we graduate, there are points of departure. I don't do trust in estates. I hired an attorney to do my trust. I did not do my own
Mm.
trust.
Wow. Okay.
I don't do family law. I refer those types of matters out. I stay in my lane because
Mm.
I don't want, well, I stay in my lane because I have common sense. Let's put it that way. Um,
I'm sorry, you started us off with the fixing your pipe story. I was like,
yeah.
oh wait, this is a real story.
But
As
yeah,
far
and I came to my senses. I was like, oh no, no,
what am I
no,
doing? Where am
no.
I going?
I do not want my house flooded because I'm trying to save $100.
Someone actually came on the show and told the same story about a copier. And he
Mm.
was like, I was 10 hours in, Paula. And the kid from next door came over to hang out with my son, walked by my office, saw what I was doing, looked over at it, and went like this, boom, and it was done. And it was like, I could have just asked for help from
Mhm.
someone. I could have called a professional or just asked because who knows, someone might know how to do it. But I took it on myself 10 hours later.
Like,
Now
yeah,
I'm working late into the night to finish my commitments to my clients,
right, right. I'm
Um,
I'm trying to figure out how to turn the printer on.
it's like, why isn't the computer speaking to it's like, no, I'm not going there. That's why I have an IT guy,
Yeah,
listen, thank you so much for all this information.
sure.
I'm hoping that it shakes people up. I have a last question for you though. This is from Raymond Ware. He was our guest last week, the growth coach of San Jose.
Mhm.
And he wanted to ask you, how will AI impact your business, yourself, your industry personally? What's your opinion on that?
I think we're pretty far away from AI displacing attorneys. Certainly, on no Paul Hastings, Morgan Lewis, these larger law firms are not going to be using AI to draft their forms. They charge too much to do it, and there's too. If AI gets it wrong, there's too much at stake.
Yeah.
So what we've seen with a lot of the AI programs is, I think someone used it, and I'm totally pulling this from, what I read on social media. Someone pulled it to write, to draft a complaint, or write something that was going before the court. And AI made up cases. These cases didn't exist. based on what the inputs were, it created, whole cloth.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work that way. And
Yeah.
so I think I would trust it depending on what AI is allowed to draw from. So if it's AI that says, I'm going to go in and I'm going to, scan and scour your contracts and pull out language. And also I have access to quote unquote best practices in terms of provisions, I would trust it. But if it's going to go out into like just the general internet, it's going to pick up a lot of garbage. And
Yeah.
so I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about it more from a consumer standpoint. I think consumers need to be aware of what's going on with AI and that it's not a fix all yet. It's still in its infancy. I don't think you would trust a 3-month old to drive you to the airport. Okay, so that's where AI is right now.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
very mindful of where the technology is. Think about where the internet was 35 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's in its infancy. So everyone who's sounding the alarm, oh, we've got some time, but we certainly do need to be aware that it's out there. We need to learn about it. We need to learn how to use it. It is not going to go away. It's not going to be like NFTs. Uh, I think AI is going to be, and I think it will serve a purpose. There can be some very good uses for it for professionals. Now, what consumers can do with AI is a completely different ball of wax. What I could
Mm.
use it for versus what a consumer could use it for in the legal field are two very different things. For me, it could make me more efficient in my drafting if, again, the inputs and the output are quality. And we have some, rudimentary things out there now that kind of do that. But I think AI, the way it exists, or we envision it existing, once it's a lot more sophisticated, it can be very useful for attorneys and other legal professionals to make our lives a lot easier and save us time. And ultimately, hopefully, we can save consumers money by passing those savings on to them.
No, definitely. And so, how can viewers get in touch with you if they want to stay in touch? They want to see what's going on in the world of Toni Long, or actually take your advice. Uh, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and
No,
you
please,
know,
please set up initial consultations with not only me, but any other legal professional you're thinking of using. So I have a website. You can find me on my website, www.tyllaw, my three initials, the word law.com. And I'm showing my age by doing the www.
I didn't see anything.
You can
I didn't
find
hear
me
it.
on LinkedIn. I'm certainly on social media, but there's a different Toni who's on social media than the professional before you. So be aware. There's also a Toni Long who's an OBGYN. So two doctors, but we do different things in the LA area. So don't get us confused. You'll be in for quite a surprise. And you can call my office, check the website. You can make, I believe, appointments or send us queries via the website. We have a form, and you can give us a call, 213. What's my number over here? I don't want to give you
I know, because
myself.
you don't call how often do
I
you
know,
call?
right? I don't call
I
myself
mean,
a lot.
listen, I'll drop in the website for you guys in after the show so that you can see it. You can connect over. Also, please connect with her on LinkedIn as well. We're
Yes.
definitely both there as
Mhm.
well. My dear, thank you so much for coming in,
Yeah.
just having this open discussion,
Yeah.
because I feel like it's something that not a lot of lawyers want to have an open discussion about. I know it's just in my head that they don't want to, but
Yeah,
I was
you'd be
very happy that you
surprised.
offered.
I'm keep asking us. It takes us a little time because a lot of us are introverts.
Yeah.
So we don't like to do this sort of thing.
Thank you so much. And as always, my continued mission is to introduce you to what I call everyday experts and, of course, business owners in general who will share their expertise to uplevel you, because we're a hive mind. We
Yes.
don't all know everything like we discussed today, and everyone has pieces of it. And that's really all the reason why I do the show. We air every Thursday at 10 a.m. on LinkedIn Live. Um, And we have a quote today. But wait a second, I'm stealing it from you. What's that quote? That's your favorite quote. I
I,
think it's so perfect for what we do.
as a lawyer, just based on what I do, it's basically if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
I love
Planning
that.
is key.
I love that. I think a friend last night told me that if you're not making a plan, then it's just called dreaming and wishing. I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah,
it's
pretty much.
like
That friend
right.
is correct. Yeah.
So thank you to Toni being on the show,
Thank you for
because
having me.
me and Toni can keep talking for a while. So we're chopping it. I'm gonna get you guys back to your days. Thank you guys so much for viewing. I hope the information. Please share it. Stay strong through this really interesting time.
Yeah.
And as always, keep moving forward, guys. Take care of yourself. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And we're out.